Thank you. Gracias. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I got to say, I've been to a lot of ASIG events. This is probably the most exciting one that I've ever seen. Most of them are actually boring. It's like presentation after presentation. This one was exciting. Not only you come here to learn about technology and SAP, but you also get fit. You get a workout. So you don't have to go work out at home. So my name is Dinesh Vandayar. I lead the go-to-market for the SAP business at Google Cloud. So I've been at Google for about 6 years now. And before that, I spent a lot of time with SAP. 28 years approximately in the SAP ecosystem, including working at SAP for many, many years. If you listen to the song Hotel California, it's like you can check out, but you can never leave. That's SAP. If you try to leave, they'll grab you back, So, so I'm going to spend the next about 30 minutes or so. I think they told me I got to be on time. Talking about AI, right? So if you work for Google, and if you don't mention AI, at least 1,000 times a day, our badge keeps track of how many times we actually say AI, you're going to get fired. So, in all seriousness, that's all we talk about. Everybody from our CEO onwards, the conversation's all about AI. So I'm going to spend about 30 minutes to talk about how customers are adopting AI. What are some of the common patterns that we're seeing and how customers are adopting? So on the one end, you see, this is 2 weeks ago, Gemini achieved, in my opinion, one of the most seminal tasks, which is to win 10 out of the 12 gold medals at an international collegiate programming contest. And this is important because, you've seen a lot of news about, LLMs and AI winning a lot of math contests, but this is unique mainly because it requires a lot of abstract reasoning that only humans, were able to do it, right? So in this contest, if you look at it, there were about thousands of teams, the best human brains at the universities that participated in this contest. And about 150 teams, got to the finals. And this was about 2 weeks ago, where they're given about 12 problems. And it's 5-person teams. And they're given a hard count of 5 hours to solve all these problems. And there is no partial credit. Either you solve the problem or you don't get any points, right? Gemini won 10 out of the 12 medals, and there was one particular problem, and I want to spend a little bit of time on that problem, that no human team was able to solve. And that problem was simply there were many reservoirs, tanks, and there were many pipes or ducts that water could flow into. The problem was, how do I optimize the flow of water through these pipes to all the reservoirs that I can optimally fill all reservoirs in the most connected way, right? And you can imagine there are infinite possibilities. So in this case, Gemini came up with a very clever trick that no human brain could do. What it did was, it assigned something called priority value to each of the reservoir or the tank, and it compared that priority value in importance to every other reservoir. By simply doing that one task, and then it started applying all the mathematical, then the LLMs are good, it knows what equations and all those things, dynamic programming, and it was able to solve the problem in 30 minutes that no other human team, and these are some of the superhumans that we have, very, very smart people. And if you look at the blog, I linked the blog, and I hope you get these slides. If you read the blog, this is the first, Google's been very cautious about, talking about artificial general intelligence. In this blog, they actually mentioned that we're getting closer to AGI, mainly because now the LLMs are getting super smart about abstract reasoning, right? That's on one end. On the other end, you have Nano Banana. I don't know how many of you guys use Nano Banana. It was released about a month ago, and it became so viral that it actually made Gemini the #1 LLM on Apple Store and Android Play. And this to the point where Jensen was actually in a conference in London. Think about this, the CEO of the most valuable company in the world spent 10 minutes talking about how he uses Nano Banana. But that's the viral nature of AI, right? So consumers are adopting AI at a hectic pace. And that's me. This is my idol, Lionel Messi, right? I mean, in all honesty, there's two players that I love. One was Maradona, the other was Lionel Messi. But look at the picture. I mean, the quality of this. It's my face on Messi's body with the celeste, albeit the Argentinian colors, but the muscles are Messi's muscles. But nobody knows that. Like I use that in my WhatsApp profile. People actually think it's really me. And this one, I want to play this. Ricardo, can you play this? So I'm going to play this for a little bit. Volume.
Step on the pedal, and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV, and it seems to be like the right type of car for him.
I think the range is only going to get better. Sorry.
We don't want to drive gas cars anymore.
Yeah, no more gas cars.
You can see I'm kind of a misfit here, but don't tell anyone. I've just bought an electric car.
I think it's really great for families and for little babies with all the safety
if I were to
features
say there were no cameras used, this whole auto show or car show is completely 100% fake. There were no humans in that video. It was all through text prompting using our app called VO3. You just put text in. It's up to your imagination. You can create whatever you want. I actually created a Bollywood video just to test it out. It was phenomenal. This is like Hollywood quality production. And consumers not only are adopting, but big companies, Mondelez in the US, is launching campaigns because you know how sensitive this marketing and campaign guys are. I mean, everything has to be on brand. They are now using VO3 to what they do, tier 2 marketing, that's Instagram and X and all those other things. I mean, they use VO3. It's not only productivity, but it's how many campaigns that they can launch. It used to take about 8 weeks for them to do a single campaign. They can launch in actually minutes, hours if they want, because they can use these capabilities. When I was at SAP, one of my last roles that I had was a fun role called global marketing. They used to create sizzle reels. It cost $50,000 to create a sizzle reel. I can use VO3 with just 1/100th of the cost and make it so quick. So there's a lot of productive uses as well. The point that I want to make is there is a lot of consumer adoption, and enterprises are quickly catching up as well. And a lot of the initial use cases were about efficiency, but I think now it's becoming fundamental to innovation. A lot of people are using AI to not only generate ideas, but also really solve some tough problems. But how many of you have read this recent BCG report that came about probably about a month ago? So if you look at the graph very closely, there is and this is the AI and ML segment, there is a net 30% increase in investments. But if you look at the right side, there's a negative 12% in return on business value. Think about that. So companies are investing a lot of money, but they're not getting the net return. To me, when I look at, across a lot of customers, there are two main reasons for it. One, I think, is a lot of the initial use cases were what I call technical POCs, right? So they wanted to test an LLM. They wanted to, check, benchmark one LLM to another LLM, and those kinds of use cases. They never actually picked a use case with specific to solving a business outcome. They just wanted to check the technology feasibility. A lot of those use cases obviously went nowhere because, yeah, technically feasible, but if it's not an actual problem that the business has to solve, what's the point, right? So I think there's one bunch of use cases that kind of fit that criteria. The second one, I think, is data. I mean, there's a lot of things that AI does, but it doesn't solve for the data issues. You still have to have pretty good data, right? You can help AI to cleanse some of the data and so on, but without good data, then it's the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, still stands, right? So my advice is, when you start thinking about use cases for your own business processes, business outcomes, be very careful about the use case that you select, because AI can deliver wonderful business outcomes, but you got to be very picky about the ones that you choose. Because, just technically checking something out is not going to solve a business problem. Yeah? But how do I bridge the gap, right? So to me, there are three key trends that we're seeing from at least my perspective. I don't know why the thing is cut off, but I can voice over. One is multimodality, right? So AI is not about just text anymore. You can actually, have images, video, audio, all of those things used in the context of AI, right? So multimodality. There's a company that I work with in Cincinnati, in the US, that basically has cameras on their conveyor belt. They make beef patties and hot dogs for big companies like Cargill. They're a contract manufacturer, and they want to optimize the production efficiency. So they put cameras, they use the images, send it out to Gemini to analyze and see what they can do to improve efficiency. So multimodality is a key trend that we're seeing. The second one is, to me, the game changer. That's the agentic workflows. So gone are those days when you have like a single chat bot that sort of, you had a conversation with a chat bot, and a lot of people feel frustrated. Like recently I was at the US Ryder Cup, and this company called SeatGeek, which I had to claim my ticket. I had a problem, and I had a chatbot. I was so frustrated with the chatbot, I had to beg for a phone number, right? So that experience is gone. Now we have very sophisticated multi-agent, multi-system agent workflows that can actually plan, reason, and execute. And I will tell you what an agent is, because a lot of people still fully don't understand what an agent comprises of. And the third one is knowledge frontier. Here is a little bit more how I use AI in my daily life. I mean, there's a lot of tools within Google, but there are three tools. One is called Agent Space, a Notebook LM, and Deep Research that I use. And I want to just quickly give you a glimpse of how you can improve your own productivity using some of these capabilities. But again, I want to emphasize this. Without good data, there is no good AI, and you can look at the numbers here, 92% increase in AI investment, but if you have poor data governance, AI is not going to help you. So it's super important for you to get your data house in order before you can start embarking on AI use cases. So let's briefly talk about what AI is, right? Agent is. There are, I don't know why this is being cut off here, but there are really 4 core components in an agent. One is obviously the LLM or the model. So the Gemini model or ChatGPT, all those things are LLMs. The second component is what I call tools. These are basically things that make the agent run. It calls, it fetches data, it connects with other systems. The agent from SAP wants to connect to a Google agent, to a Microsoft agent. The tools are the ones that actually, makes that happen. The third one, which is this guy, the orchestration agent, this is the brain of the agent, okay? And this is the one that basically has the ability to reason. If you give it a task, it's not just rules-based anymore, it has to reason. And the key thing about the orchestration layer is there is memory, both short-term and long-term memory. So it keeps learning, just like humans do, because it has memory. It remembers the context. In the past, a lot of the use cases that they did just with generative AI models, and if you look at the Boston Consulting Group report, it specifically calls out Gen AI. They didn't have the ability to have memory. So the context is lost. Once you do the search, you get some output, and it's lost. But with the agent and the orchestration capabilities, because of the fact that it has memory, it's always there, it's remembered. So it gets, the tasks get better and better. It starts planning and reasoning better than before. So every single time it improves. And then the last one is the agent runtime, which is kind of the same with, you call the agent, it invokes and executes it. So that's a key component, but it's been around for a while, but I think that's what an agent comprises of, right? So what do agents need? There are really 4 things, right? You got to give it a goal. What is the objective of the agent? You got to give it instructions. You have to dictate the behavior of the agent. What is how should the agent behave for you, right? So that's in the instructions. And the knowledge is really kind of the LLMs. I mean, you can ground it with any source. You can have, you have capabilities now to just use your enterprise data source to create that knowledge for the LLM, grounded in your data. So you can give it specific sources so it's not hallucinating and coming up with some crazy things, right? And finally, the tools, right? I mean, we talked about the tools, the ability to connect APIs and so on, right? I want to do this demo. I don't know, Ricardo, how do I do this? Do I click it? So before, yeah, I got it. Ooh. So let me set the context up. So in March, Google released something called agent-to-agent protocol, right? So if you think about the world that we're living in now and very soon in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, there are going to be literally trillions and trillions of agents, right? You're going to have SAP create their, mother load of agents. You're going to have Salesforce. You're going to have, ServiceNow, Microsoft. Every enterprise application company on the planet are going to create agents. How do you make sure that the agents are interoperable and talk to each other? That was the problem that Google solved in March. We released it in March. And the first company to sign up for that was actually SAP. Believe it or not, they were the first ones to sign up. They understood the problem. And then we had Microsoft, and we had a lot of other enterprise companies, ServiceNow, all of them kind of, signed up. But Google, what they did was, about a couple months ago, we made it open source. So now it's not a Google-owned product. Google obviously sits on the committee, but there are a lot of other enterprises that have say in how the A2A protocol behaves, right? So that's a key development, in my opinion. And this is a use case, and I'll set up the use case because I don't know how this clicker is going to work. But the use case, yeah, it's running. Yeah, it's running. So I'm going to talk really fast. Sorry. But let it run in the background, so I'll tell the story while it's running. You can look at the screen. In this case, the use case is a customer sends an email saying that the invoice that you sent me was, for 1,000, T-shirts, whatever that they bought, but only 900 of it was actually shipped, right? So they send an email questioning about the invoice. So in this case, what the demo does is the A2A client recognizes that this is related to invoices, so I'm going to call the SAP Joule agent to look at the invoice. The SAP Joule agent then goes and looks at the specific invoice that's in the email and checks that, yes, the invoice is for 1,000, that's verified in my SAP document, right? And the next step is the A2A client says, okay, invoice is for 1,000. I'm going to call the logistics agent. In this case, in this demo, BigQuery is the system where the scans are stored. So the A2A client then calls the Google logistics agent, and the logistics agent goes back and checks the BigQuery system, and it only has a scan for 900. Okay, so the customer is right. So now, how do I go forward? So in this case, the A2A then calls the Microsoft 365 agent and basically wants to understand what is the company policy. If there is a shipment, short, how do I address this? And it reads the policy, and the policy says that I have to create a dispute in the CRM system and then issue a credit memo to the customer. So it calls, the A2A client calls the CRM agent in SAP, records the dispute, and then issues the credit memo, goes back and calls the Microsoft agent and sends the email back to the customer. In this demo, we still have a human in the loop. Every time it checks, and I'm sorry, I can't control it, but if you get a chance, you can actually go through it step by step. And there is a human in the loop that basically says, okay, go ahead and send the email. I agree with this. But in the future, you can actually do this completely autonomously because everything is, all the information that it needs is already there, right? So I'm going to go really quick. So now the third segment of this is the knowledge frontier segment. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I use AI because I think it's going to be super critical, we all live in the age of AI. We need to understand, how do we actually use these tools to, improve our jobs better, right? So there's many, many tools in Google, but I'm going to focus on 3 of them. The agent space is one where you basically, it acts as I can create my own agents using agent space. I give it sources. So a typical employee in a company has about 6 data sources that they use on a daily basis to do their jobs. I check SAP, I check, data warehouse, I check something else, BigQuery, whatever. So in my case, I do a lot of different jobs. I have about 20, I had about 20 data sources that I use on a daily basis. For example, we closed the quarter yesterday. I have agent space that I can create all these agents to go, give me like all the deals that closed, give me deals that were about 2 million ACV, which region did better. I can, through conversational analytics, as opposed to me going to each of these data sources and picking data and creating reports for my management, agent does that for me, right? This is internal. So this is not customer facing, this is all internal. That's one tool, and I'm running out of time. I have 32 seconds, I think. And I have this demo here. You can actually look at the demo later. The other one that our team uses is Notebook LM. We have our team, I don't know if Alejandro, if you use it. This is a phenomenal tool because you can give it data and you can ground it based on the data sources that you fed. And then you can ask it any conversation. Like, for example, we use this for our different industries. We have lots of use cases by industry. And it's sitting in a bunch of different sources. We have some things called Cloud Hub and a bunch of other data sources that are within Google. So I ground the Notebook LLM on those data sources. So tomorrow, if I'm going to meet a CPG customer, I can just say, hey, give me all the CPG use cases for trade promotions or for inventory management. And the Notebook LM and I would say, format it in such a way that, it's presentable. It will create Google Slides with it. It's phenomenal. Our whole team uses it. It's a way that we collaborate now with the team because we put all the data into Notebook LM. And it doesn't hallucinate because it's based on grounded data. So it's not going to come up with some, vague answers. It's very precise. The other one this is one of my favorites, deep research. This is the one that I use the most. For example, if SAP sends me a proposal, and this has actually happened, right? So there were a partnership proposal that they send, and don't tell SAP that I did this, right? So, our CEO says, guys, we got to respond to this. Typically, the approach is we have 2 to 3 guys, create a SWAT team, 2 weeks. We work on it, do all the analysis. Our CEO is very particular in terms of how he wants to see the data. It's a 2-week effort. Right? We do the analysis, we create the reports and everything. I said, why not I try deep research? I dumped the proposal that SAP, obviously we have enterprise security. So I dumped the proposal that SAP gave me, and I created a half-a-page prompt. Right? It took me about 15, 20 minutes to create the prompt because I wanted to be so precise. And it created a 30-page document. It was just phenomenal. I go through it line by line, and I said, there is nothing that I would want to change in this. Sometimes I told my wife, why am I even here? But it is so high quality. And then I said, our CEO's name is TK, right? He has a very specific way. And, I said, I fed some of his writing style and recreate the report in TK style. I just did a beautiful executive summary. So if you're not using deep research, you're actually falling behind. You can actually improve your own productivity and your employees' productivity tremendously by using some of these tools. I know I'm out of time, so the idea generation event is, the solution is so spectacular, it creates like a tournament. So, cases of use case, picking the right use case for AI, you can actually use this tool. They got cut, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Then thank you guys. Really appreciate it.